Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. So let's talk Armored Core 6 endings. So today I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind a decent bit lately, and something that you really don't hear kind of come up that often as a belief here, which is just that the destruction ending to Armored Core 6 may well be the best overall outcome for all involved, which may seem a little bit weird given the whole you kind of vaporize the general star system type of situation, but all things considered, I think given what we see from human nature throughout the series, given how we see the Coral behaving, I think this might actually be the best overall outcome. And I wanted to explain that a little bit here. So, first and foremost, just so you know, what's off in the background is just me practicing manual fire stuff. We're not actually... don't worry, you can safely tune out and not miss anything directly as far as that goes. This is primarily going to be a full audio thing. Anyway, so let's go ahead and discuss these endings here. So there's, as far as I see it, 4 outcomes to the story. One that you never show up at all. One that's the Liberation of Rubicon. One that is the Fires of Raven ending, and then the Iliacta-esque, I believe it's how it's pronounced, or est. The Die is Cast or the Allmind ending. So here's the thing. As far as the different endings go, obviously all of them are going to be horrific in their own ways, but oftentimes I see the assumption made that the Liberation ending or the kind of Ascension ending, All Mine ending, whatever else, would be the best overall for various political or spiritual reasons or what have you. Oftentimes with the assumption that that humanity would be achieving some unachievable thing by merging with a coral, or that that somehow the Rubiconians are going to wind up going and overcoming all of the problems that they're currently faced with, despite having lost all their resources and basically being a more vulnerable target than ever, just because the scrappy rebels won. So, as far as I'm concerned, there's 2 things that I want to start off with. For one thing, as far as the Liberation ending, I don't think there's any universe in which that's the best outcome for anything. Because as far as the Rebellion is concerned, as far like the Liberation Front and all that, they are already in trouble by the time the game starts, and by the end of it, they've lost most of their best pilots. They've lost a lot of their resources. The one thing that they've basically gained is the Arquebus AC, which, like, 1 AC is not really going to do that much for them, because it's just implied some rando got a hold of the thing somehow. And aside from that, it's just implied that while they can take the planet back in that ending, like, they lose Rusty, they lose any of the other defecting Vespers, they basically they lose most of their best people. They've already lost most of their leadership by that point. And by the end of it, the corporations aren't dead. The PCA isn't dead. I mean, basically the entire third act of the game is everybody struggling against one of the suppression fleets, let alone, any more of them coming in after that point. It's one of these cases where, realistically speaking, if the PCA were to send another group, there's literally nothing they could do to stop them. If the corporations decided to get involved and send another attack there, there's very little they could do to stop them. And at that point, the word is out as far as Coral being a thing that exists, that's there. Everybody knows about it. So, as far as I'm concerned, there's not really much that they would realistically be able to do in the long term to keep themselves running. They would just end up being vulnerable and end up getting taken over again. It's implied that the Heir has some sort of plan for letting everybody work together, but it seems like the previous time that they had made contact with somebody is how they ended up just kind of teaching them to use the stuff to make very energetic mealworms, and that was kind of their solution for, like, oh, we can help sustain you and keep you functional. And they're like, you eat worms now. That doesn't really seem like a situation everybody really wants to be living in, Anyway, so as far as I'm concerned, they would pretty much be screwed immediately after the ending. Because the other corporations are still interested in this stuff. They wouldn't suddenly lose interest, now that the scrappy rebels won. They would just send more resources. Like, if the PCA, again, sends one more fleet, that's it. I mean, I would say the PCA is probably the more realistic outcome to that situation, because they would just send one more fleet, and that's that. They wouldn't have any realistic way to stop it. Like, outside of, obviously, the player character is implied to still be there defending it, but realistically speaking, okay, how many of y'all died to the Enforcer? Okay, now imagine they send like 40 of those, and, that's going to be a little bit of a harder time. So anyway, so it's implied that the resources are functionally endless. Like, they're supposed to stop all of these crazy powerful resources and machines and whatever else. It seems like they definitely learned at some points in the last few games, as far as what exactly needs protecting or not. In fact, actually, one of my favorite things isn't even related to the PCA, but the fact that the Research Institute apparently is the same one that was around during Silent Line, because they brought back the Ibis series. A lot of the machines that the PCA uses are very similar to a lot of stuff that was used by the Silent Line program and stuff like that. Like the Enforcer is really similar to the Big White and stuff like that. Anyway, so as far as I'm concerned, yeah, the RLF stands zero chance at that point. So let's go ahead and talk about the merger ending. That I've seen some describe as a evolution of humanity, but here's something to think about. Does it hurt to rust? Can robots hug? I mean, is there any part of humanity that is still left in what exactly happened to that one guy that reincarnated as a toaster? I mean, if we're all just coming back as sentient electronics, that just sounds like it can go wrong a million different ways. And not to mention, as far as the Coral is concerned, I don't think they can be trusted. Because if you look at the way that they act and ask you to do things throughout the entire story, they seem parasitic. Like, they seem to just find somebody that they can talk to and then just order them to do stuff that'll further their cause. Like, as the many times that you see, for example, Air showing emotion, it pretty much entirely is due to anything Coral related. Like, I've seen that scene as a sympathetic trait or whatever. But, like, the only time she shows emotion are like, oh no, they're using Coral as fuel or whatever else. But then when it comes to the actual, like, player character, they're like, oh yeah, the explosion almost died, you need to go kill this thing. Or, hey, this guy, you just gotta go kill this guy, don't question it. She kind of seems like she's got her own stuff going on. I don't feel like any of their big emotional attachment moments are anything to do with humanity in general, or, any kind of actual proper, I guess, emotional responses to stuff, as much as just trying to survive. So as far as I'm concerned, the thing's basically a gigantic cloud parasite. So anyways, as far as all that goes, like, we see that they're capable of manipulating people, and we see in multiple cases that there's a lot of other pilots that end up making contact to some degree and absolutely hate it. Like, you see Dolmayan, he's the one that ends up making contact also. That he finds out that he doesn't really want to go through with this whole thing. Like, in some cases he's regretting not giving it a chance, but realistically speaking, he sees it as a horror show, because again, we'd basically just be giving up humanity for the purpose of becoming this weird alien, cloud parasite thing. We don't really know the full extent of it, other than it self-propagates and it seems to like manipulating people. There's a good line from O'Keefe there also. Who basically mentions, like, yeah, like, a lot of bits about being human suck, but we're still human, like, we're sitting here eating our our shitty coffee paste and stuff like that, but at least we're alive. And that's the thing. Technically speaking, it seems implied from that ending, as far as I can tell, that humanity is basically gone. That we basically just get vaporized and turned into machines, which sounds like a horror show. Which actually, another little random side note, I've seen that interpreted in some cases as, like, you canonically beat the entire game as the C-2000 frame, but you're not on the same planet when that final scene takes place. So I understood it as you are reincarnated as just a machine, and there's just enough of the C-2000 frames from Walter's other experiments that you just ended up becoming one of them. So either way, like, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, it seems like you literally just come back as a sentient machine here. So if we're going by that logic, where basically the Rubiconians or the Coral, whatever else, can't be trusted, and seems to be manipulating people, and also seems to be capable of killing all, like, existing life in space, just at a moment's notice, because the sentient computer told it to, and uploading everybody to the gigantic space hive mind, as it were. That sounds like something that needs to be blown up immediately. That sounds like an absolute horror show. Again, everybody, as far as the like whether or not it would be good to have a hive mind or whatever else. Again, bear in mind this comes with absolutely zero privacy for any involved. So essentially, this probably would just result in, like, if humanity got turned into a hive mind, would just result in endless fighting constantly over everything. Because it's not like all those same, corporations or whatever else wouldn't exist anymore. Now they would just all individually be the pilots they were previously, hiring and whatever else. So for all intents and purposes, we're basically looking at a Transformers future where you got you got your Autobots and your Decepticons and whatever else, but suddenly. Suddenly everybody is a fighting-capable machine instead of a, like a little bureaucrat or whatever else, By the way, I apologize for all of the weird throat noises. I don't know whether it's allergies or cold or what, but yeah. The throat was just feeling funny today. So either way, basically, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, then we just shift over to any Transformers movie whatsoever, and that's more or less what we're dealing with. So, not exactly an ideal future as far as I'm concerned. Now, let's go ahead and talk about why the destruction ending would be the best one in this scenario. So, basically all the destruction ending does is set all of the coral on fire so that it's gone forever. Now, two things. We know for a fact that it actually wouldn't be the end of the coral due to, funnily enough, the All-Mind ending. Because we see that they were transporting some of it off-site. So some of it would still exist in labs somewhere, but this time they know not to let it propagate. They know not to let it all, work together and sit together. And presumably there's only enough of it to run some, energy experiments or whatever else. But either way, for all intents and purposes, it exists, but there's not enough of it to be a, galaxy-wide threat anymore. So essentially, this would just cull down the amount of coral in the universe there to the point where maybe they would be able to make contact. Maybe they would be able to, allow it to have sentience. Maybe they would be able to allow it to be an energy source. Who knows? Maybe they find some way to make it a beautiful, kind of a beneficial process for both sides. But as far as the scarier implications of it, again, wiping out all life in the galaxy to turn them into machines, you don't have that particular outcome in that situation. Additionally, we also know that even though the fires would burn everything, it would basically just burn the coral. This doesn't necessarily mean that the entire planet is completely toast. There's several people that had survived from the original fires, so therefore it's at least to some degree survivable. Not very survivable by any means, but still somewhat survivable, So either way, so basically we would have some of humanity surviving, the coral would still survive. Rubicon itself isn't like the most populated place to begin with, and it's mostly just this area where, pretty much everybody anyone cared about was mostly dead by that point anyway. So, as far as I see it, from a personal level, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily too many sympathetic people left to save at that point. And also, it would prevent this galaxy-wide threat here, and additionally would prevent being reincarnated as a toaster. So, as far as I'm concerned, that's the best overall outcome in this situation. So yeah, that's kind of about that. Just kind of wanted to throw my 2 cents on this pile here, because I saw a few folks insisting that the liberation was the only good ending, which, again, as far as I'm concerned, they are screwed the next week. They got no frickin' shot. There's no frickin' way that works out. Anyway, that'll be about that. Y'all have yourselves a good one, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comments. Take care.